regulated financial institution, RBC is required by law to comply with applicable legislation. We are no longer in a position to continue our banking relationship with you. Oh my God, it's a breakup letter. Put some Sarah McLachlan song under this.
Disrupted.
Weird thing to happen. Some developing news on the Freedom Convoy and the sentencing trial. This came about, and I'm not even shocked to even see a headline like this because of what the heinous actions of the Emergency Powers Act has done to Canadians and the ability to just shut off bank accounts on the whim of these giant, corporate banks. It's happened to this woman. So Royal Bank of Canada shuts down Freedom Convoy's lawyers' accounts over risk concerns, in quotations. So here's a bit of a sum up here that I got the AI to briefly describe. It says Royal Bank of Canada has terminated its banking relationships with Eva Chipnick, a lawyer associated with the Freedom Convoy, citing risk concerns. This action aligns with broader measures taken by Canadian banks during the 2022 Ottawa protests, where financial institutions were directed to freeze accounts linked to the convoy, often under the authority of the Emergencies Act. At the time, banks were instructed to stop providing financial services to individuals and entities associated with the protests, which included freezing bank accounts and cutting off access to credit. While the government claimed these measures were aimed at disrupting funds for the protests, there were also reports that some donors and even family members of the protesters were inadvertently affected. The recent action against Chipwick, how do you say it? Chipwick? Reflects a continued caution by financial institutions regarding individuals linked to the Freedom Convoy movement. So, ever since that got revealed, and this is something that's been in the works, this is something that the Canadian government has had in their sleeves for quite a while now, but we really saw it during the Freedom Convoy when they rolled out the Emergencies Act for the first time ever. It's never been done unless in an act of war. They rolled out this act. They froze bank accounts. They cracked down on people. They alienated people from their financial institutions. So that means all their finances for gas and groceries and expenses were completely shunned out. People did not have money. And it wasn't just people within the protests, as stated here. It was people that donated to the protests, it was family members. And this scandal that should have been nipped in the butt at the time is still continuing, folks. It's still continuing because, again, the debanking process had really nothing to do, per se, with the Freedom Convoy, but they rolled it out to the Freedom Convoy as kind of a beta test to then pursue that onto other people. That's why digital IDs are coming out. That's why digital currency, because it's easier to flip off your finances like a light switch than it is to, have cash around. That's why the saying goes, cash is king. So, here's the woman here, Eva Chipwick. This is the lawyer representing the Freedom Convoy. And she recorded, she has it covered for, I guess, legal purposes. But listen to her being explained by RBC why her bank account has been frozen. Says, oh, I know, but that was part of the problem. For them, I moved some money. They froze my account, then lectured me about it before releasing my money. Have a listen. So this is an RBC employee telling this lawyer that we're restricting you of your own bank account. And listen to their excuse.
So what was your first question again?
The first question was, how did you learn about this opportunity with the cryptocurrency?
Yeah, I was at a Bitcoin conference.
Okay. Is there a third party involved, or is this all on your own merit?
Yeah, it's all on my own merit, and just for the recording, I'm doing this totally against my will because Royal Bank is not allowing me to access my own money without these questions being answered that I totally am not comfortable with. Okay. Continue.
Do you have full access to your own crypto wallet?
Yes, I do.
Access. Okay. Are you able to withdraw funds from there if you need, from the cryptocurrency?
Of course I can. It's much easier than the way Royal Bank is treating me at the moment, in fact.
That's fair. I'm just asking you some questions
Yeah,
that
which
are
are,
policy.
yeah,
Yeah.
that you've made up.
Were you promised a specific rate of return on
No,
your...
I wasn't.
Okay. Were you asked to install any software on your computer?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. How long have you been investing in crypto approximately? Is this a brand new thing? Have you
No,
been doing it?
years.
Years? Okay. And you are able to sign into the crypto website yourself, sell, trade, and withdraw all on your
Much
own?
easier than with the Royal Bank,
Okay,
as I'm
perfect.
experiencing right now.
I will answer those questions and I will get back to you.
Thank you so much.
So they kept trying to make up excuses of why a customer of theirs is not allowed to access their own money. That is just insane. That is, you'd imagine that's something you've heard about in places like North Korea. That's how you imagine like the Soviet Union would treat its people. Or everyone, raves about, China. Oh, China, you have to have this, this application to access your funds, and the Chinese communist government might take away your bank. It's happening here. It's happening here. It's happening in the Western Hemisphere, the so-called democratic free state, that they're denying people access to their own finances, to their own bank accounts. And their excuses are just baffling. That, well, there's a risk concern because, you took money and transferred somewhere else. I know it's your money, but we're going to shut you down. We're going to shut you down because it's concerning to us. But they don't even really reveal why it's concerning. So this is the official statement from the RBC. This is what they sent to her. And it says, as a federally regulated financial institution, RBC is required by law to comply with applicable legislation. These laws require that we implement certain processes and procedures which directly support the formulation of RBC's positions with respect to risk. After careful consideration, we regretfully advise you that the recent activity in your accounts is outside the RBC's client risk appetite. What does that mean? What does that mean? Can you just use regular English? Out of the client risk appetite. What, did you fill up on burgers before you wrote the letter? What do you mean appetite? Consequently, we are no longer in a position to continue our banking relationship with you. Oh my God, it's a breakup letter. The Dear John breakup letter. Oh. Put some Sarah McLachlan song under this. Relationship. We recognize that you will need to seek an alternative financial institution to support your banking needs, and we ask you to do so no later than August 18, 2025, the termination date. In order to assist you with the transaction, we have prepared a helpful summary of accounts attached in Appendix A, which we can refer you to, blah, blah, blah. If any of your accounts are subject to a legal demand or restraint, RBC will close these accounts at the earliest opportunity it is legally permitted to do so, on or after the termination date. And you notice how in that description, you notice how in that letter, it doesn't say, well, we're going to get your money out of the account and then shut your relationship with this bank. No, they're still going to keep the money in her account. She just doesn't have access to it. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. This is diabolical authoritarianism coming from the top banks. And they're allowed to do so because the Canadian government, under Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland, ordered these financial institutions to comply with the abilities to shut off these financial institutions, shut off the bank accounts of people that use these banks. And they don't get their money out. They don't get their money that they saved into the bank accounts. They get shunned out of it. for a massive amount of reasons that they can't even pull together. Oh, it's risky that you're moving your own money around. It's risky. Oh, well, you're a lawyer for the Freedom Convoy, so hypothetically, we got to shut down the account because that's still something to do with, COVID crap. Like, they don't even have an excuse for this. But they have the power to, because the Canadian government allowed these big banks to shut off bank accounts, and no one has a safety net to deal with this. So here's Meghan Murphy. You remember Meghan Murphy also got debanked, and that wasn't even for the Freedom Convoy. She got debanked because she was running in a campaign. Welcome to Democracy Canada, where a candidate gets debanked for running in a campaign. Like, how is this allowed to happen? How is this allowed to happen? And furthermore, why is there not enough emphasis of this coming in the near future when Mark Carney and the rest of the liberal establishment is converting everything to a digital currency, to a digital ID? They're forcing that onto Canadians. That's what we discovered with the UBI. Hey, we'll give you some money now that, AI is going to take over jobs and you might lose your job and you might have to deal with, income disparity. But we can get you this UBI. You just got to sign a contract that sells yourself out to the digital ID currency machine. So that we have control of your finances. Meghan Murphy says Canadian banks and credit unions are cutting off people with ever more frequency, it seems. This should be illegal, period. Debanking is life-threatening. It prevents people from surviving in Canada. It is never justified unless there is a crime. And isn't that kind of funny that a lot of these banks, and I've seen, countless articles, I've seen breakdowns, W5 did a whole story about how TD Bank, how RBC pursued in money laundering activity. They brought in money from organized crime syndicates that came in from BC that were chipping in on the BC casino industry, and they were using the money for drug trafficking and sexual perversion of young minors. None of that got debanked. But Meghan Murphy running a campaign, a lawyer representing two representatives of the Freedom Convoy, she gets debanked. The people partaking in a peaceful demonstration, they got debanked. Anyone that contributed to the protests, they got debanked. They're very loose when it comes to the restrictions. Isn't that amazing? Is that amazing? And here, Meghan Murphy, that's written on her Substack here because no publication is willing to actually discuss this because they know that they're going to suck up to big banks. They're going to suck up to the AI takeover, and they're hoping that, yes, everything becomes digital currency. So Meghan Murphy wrote this saying the Canadian government froze my bank account just in time for the election. Nothing to do with the convoy. Nothing to do with the convoy. Just the fact that she was running a campaign that the establishment, both liberal, conservative, the NDP, they all despised because she actually represented freedom. She actually wanted to investigate the corruption of the Emergency Powers Act. She was one of the very few voices willing to stick her neck out and defend the people within this country. And because of that, she got debanked. And you remember, this is back in 2022, Frozen, how Canada's banks betrayed their customers during the Emergencies Act, creepy authoritarianism. So this was in the books for many years. But the Freedom Convoy, their ability to roll this out was kind of like a beta test. It was a beta test to finally figure out how we can have full control over people. Because as Meghan Murphy points out, that once they control your finances, they control your livelihood. Think about it. You don't have access to your money How are you going to be able to afford groceries? How do you afford to pay bills? How do you afford to, pay for the expenses that you have to use every single day? You don't have access to your own money. And the fact that the banks are making up these excuses to deliberately siphon out people from their own bank accounts. It's insane. It is insane that this still continues on. And furthermore, because it's not just the Freedom Convoy, it's not just political attacks, but it's also just regular run-of-the-mill Canadians, like this woman here. So, Rebel News pointed this out. Rebel News that, I question about their take on Middle East wars and whatnot. They're very questionable, but they have moments like this that I applaud them for. Because this elderly woman, she lost her bank account from Scotiabank. They terminated her bank account. And did she get the money back? Did she get the money that was stored in that account? No. But they restricted her access because this woman did not agree with their banking policies, their creeping banking policies that involve digitizing the currency. So they get to decide whether you get access your bank account or not. She didn't agree with their DEI policy. Well, listen what they say.
For Rebel News here at a Scotiabank branch in West End, Toronto. And folks, I ask you this, do you remember the good old days when the big Canadian banks were all about, financial services? And I ponder that question because thanks to wokeness, we increasingly see people losing their bank accounts or having their bank accounts frozen due to, wokeness. Consider what happened in 2022 when thousands of Canadians had their bank accounts frozen just for donating online to the Freedom Convoy. It was a shocking slap in the face.
As of today, a bank or other financial service provider will be able to immediately freeze or suspend an account without a court order.
So your account, by the way, I'm not sure if you're aware, but there was a CMA under the Measures Act. They required financial institutions to suspend financial services for accounts with large crowdfunding going through towards the protest.
And who is they?
This is the federal government. So Premier Justin Trudeau put out an announcement on Monday. I encourage you to look into it. That your account was caught up in that Measures Act.
So you guys have not only frozen my account, but suspended my account?
Well, frozen the account for now. I mean, we're working on this as well.
Came down here with the Freedom Convoy here in Parliament Hill, Ottawa, and my bank account has gotten frozen.
And you might recall my interview last year with Gary Duke of Grand Prairie, Alberta. He asked a question politely about the Pride multicolor Scotiabank app when it was going to be deleted from his phone, given that they were no longer in Pride Month. And for having the temerity to say that, he was told, that's it, you're done, pack up your accounts and go. And folks, that is the reason why we are here today. Meet my guest. We're going to call her Jane. Jane is not her real name. But Jane, much like Gary Duke in Grand Prairie, Alberta, well, she's being debanked by Scotiabank. Jane got into a conversation with the management here. They decided that after more than 20 years of banking at this Scotiabank, her business was no longer needed and she was persona non grata. Now, the question is, why? Well, that is a great question indeed, because no reason was given. Jane thinks she has the reason why she was deleted from this bank, and it all has to do with the DEI policy. Namely, Jane had the temerity to say in one of her communiques, why don't you include seniors in that DEI embrace? And apparently, well, once you start questioning that narrative, you got to go looking for another bank, at least as far as Scotiabank is concerned. Jane, thank you so much for meeting us here.
So, think about that. An elderly woman going to the bank got denied access because she questioned diversity in the DEI policy. But she has a point there. If you're going to diversify everything, if you're going to make this so inclusive, what's stopping you from including seniors? What's stopping you from including people with different voices and different opinions? You notice how diversity really isn't diversity? It's more like a mirage. It's more like corporate color washing, just like LGBTQ, just like the guy that got flagged and terminated his account because he didn't want the Pride app from Scotiabank. That's a decision he made. That's a decision that people are allowed to make, that a customer or a client at a bank is allowed to make. But according to these big financial institutions, if you're not on board 100% and committed to the narrative, that's it. They just immediately lock you out of your finances. And none of these people got their money out of those accounts. It's still within the banking institutions. They still kept the money, and God only knows doing what with it. But they're shunned out of their bank accounts because they questioned certain narratives, because they questioned the authority and the authoritarianism coming out of financial institutions. You put your money into a bank account, and unless you're doing some criminal acts, you should be allowed to continue using that bank. They don't do an investigation. They don't do a deep dive. They just tell you that's it. They just tell you that's it. Hey, we're shutting your services down. We don't need you anymore. Well, why is that? Well, we're not going to tell you. How crazy that is. How crazy that is. So here's a bit more from the woman. Here's her actually speaking.
And I should tell the viewers, we did go in to speak to the manager. I've reached out several times by email and phone, no response. I've reached out to the media relations department of Scotiabank Corporate, not even an acknowledgement of my queries. But we did go in to try to get some answers, and well, we came up short. My name's David Menzies with Rebel News, and we're doing a story. I reached out to Guy Moran. It's on this lady being debanked from your bank. Wasn't given a reason. She believes the reason might be because she suggested that seniors should be part of the diversity, equity, and inclusion program. Mm-hmm. Ma'am, is there anyone that could come on camera and explain why, for her suggestion of altering the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy, that means she's debanked? She's not a customer anymore.
So I don't know anything regarding the situation because I don't get the emails or anything regarding anything from the back office or this branch. Okay. As probably this was her home branch before. Her relationship with the bank was closed. So I don't know anything regarding the situation personally.
You know, it is astonishing. I've seen the correspondence back and forth.
So if that woman doesn't know the situation, wouldn't that comply her to get the manager? Wouldn't that comply her to say, hey, I don't know this specifically, but let me talk to someone that does? Get someone else to come in and talk to the reporter? You would think that would comply someone to do that, but
between you and the manager, Guy Moran, why do you think he is not actually giving you a tangible reason as to why you are not welcome at this bank anymore?
Well, the only thing that I could think about was the fact that I, first of all, criticized the bank because the service is not very good. Like you leave emails, you leave messages. It's also a bank where the rotation of the staff is every 2 or 3 months replaced, managers every 3 years. And when we went in, there's no name tag, so you don't know whom to address. So anyway, I complained about the services and then put it in writing. And one of the things that I mentioned is the fact that seniors, like myself, I mean, I do basic computer, but I don't have a cell phone, I don't do any apps, things like that. And when I go in, they tell me, go online. And I say, I'm here specifically. What are you here for? I'm here specifically because I don't know how to do it online.
We were there for 2 reasons. One, to get an explanation why you're persona non grata. And secondly, they still have a small amount of your money. Now, they can't have it both ways. They can't fire you as a customer and then keep your money, right?
Absolutely. And not only that, but I wrote a letter. I was polite. Even I closed the letter by saying, welcome to this bank. I know you have 2 banks, so it's a lot of work.
I read your letters, and they're very polite. But my goodness, you're being treated as though you're some kind of a con woman or you've got links to a terrorist organization.
Yes, and the higher bureau that I sent a copy to, escalating the things, they says, well, they can do that. They don't have to give you a reason. So go and look in your agreement. Well, 1998, I signed the opening agreement. Do you think I still have it? No. And the headquarters did not want to give me a copy. They say, go to the branch, which we did today. And she doesn't know either. I asked him, can I get a copy of that? Because it was probably standard agreement. And he says, go to your branch. So I'm here at the branch, following directions. And so would you be able to have that agree what people signed in 1998 when they opened the power checking account?
So I would have to get somebody who can go in and look at it, right? Because, like I said, I'm honestly here just for 2 days.
Now, I have a statement here from Guy Moran. He wrote it to you on April 30th of this year. And part of that statement reads, quote, after careful consideration, the Bank of Nova Scotia has decided to end our relationship with you. We understand it will take time for you to make arrangements with another financial institution. Therefore, we are providing you this advance notice of the date on which each of your accounts and other products/services will be closed. Our decision complies with the conditions in the agreements you have with us, end quote. It's a vicious circle, isn't it? They won't actually say what condition you broke. But Jane, we went into the bank. In fact, outside the bank, I see, they still have the Pride propaganda on the window. Look on the Pride side. We're halfway through August almost. Pride ended in June, and yet you see Pride flags everywhere, Pride posters, et cetera, et cetera. Are they just so down in their wokeism about, I guess, the rainbow community that even to ask questions about it, like you did and like Gary Duke did in Alberta, off with their heads?
Yes, and it's and not only that, but the hypocrisy is he wrote that letter. First of all, wrote a letter to my deceased husband too, which shows you that they don't know their customers. Secondly, he said, we're here to help you do the transition. The number he gave, I had friends phone it. It doesn't correspond to anything. And then the head quarter said, what's in the system? And that's another criticism I had, is that the card that was given to me did not say manager, it said securities, so they don't update the information either, which is all part of customer service.
And by the way,
So that is just insane. That is just insane. And it's so hilarious that they write letters about, we understand you got to take some time to make other arrangements. You realize you still have her money. Like, how is this woman supposed to make other arrangements or go to another financial institution when you have her money still? Like, that is the absurdity of this. You shut down her bank account. You then write a letter about, I'm sorry we had to shut down your bank account. Hope you can go elsewhere. But the money's still in the damn account. The money's still there. How insane that is. How insane that is. And how insane this still keeps going on in this country. Where's the crowds of people uproaring about this? How about all the elbows up people? You care so much about, Trump and the potential 51st state. Where's the uproar that Canadians aren't allowed to use their bank accounts? Where's the uproar on that? Where's the anger and transgression on that? Oh, of course not, because we've been told not to. We've been conditioned to never, ever, ever question big banks, the government, any institution within this country. Even though the institutions within this country are the ones that are undermining Canadians more so than Donald Trump or Elon Musk or anything America throws at us. I mean, it's the Bank of Nova Scotia. And it's amazing that they can, hire and fire these people. I don't know why that woman says she was only there 2 days. Like, that part of the policy that they switch things up. God only knows. But it's amazing that Scotiabank has the power to, buy sports arenas and all these venues and, put their money into all these ventures. But yet, an elderly woman, a lawyer, and many other people, and not just Scotiabank, but all the other financial institutions in the country, can't access their own finances. That is wild. That is wild. And what's concerning to me and why we need to speak up so loudly about this, not just for the sake of the people that got that are unfortunately victimized by this, but look where it's coming towards. Look where the direction is going towards. Why do you think they're pushing more and more people to subscribe to, digitizing? Why they're pushing people to a digital currency? Why they're promoting this? Why they're saying it's so convenient? Even that woman said that, they were trying to push her towards digital banking, which I understand. Some people find convenient. Some people don't. I've used the digital banking services, and I still do. And I understand that elderly people in her situation, they don't use those services. That's why you still have banks. That's why you still have tellers. That's why, ATMs still exist. But what happens in the near future when all that gets transformed and all that gets digitized? And instead of going to a bank machine to get cash, to get paper money that you can distribute without having the follow through, where does that leave people like her when everything gets digitized? And instead of having cash to pay things. It's now an application. You now just wipe your phone over, and the phone gets to decide whether you're allowed to make the payment. So it's going to leave those people out of the dark, and it's just so detrimental to this country. It's so sinister, it's so scary, and like I said, you know, you cut people's finances off, you're cutting off their livelihood. Like, that's the most sinister, evil plot you can do to a person, is restricting their access to their finances that they need to pay for the basic necessities of life. That is diabolical. That is full authoritarian control. And it's sad that nobody, really nobody, except for maybe few people, are willing to speak up against this. And they better speak up now, because eventually, you know, people think that, oh, I'm not going to be affected because I don't question anything and I follow the rules. Well, if you don't speak up now, the saying goes, eventually it comes to you. Eventually it's going to come down to you, and who's going to speak up for you when you're silent now.